There is nothing I despise more than weak-minded people, and in this game, you'll see that I wasn't playing with just one bad player. It was like the entire team merged into one harmonious ensemble of disasters. Let's start with the obvious. We're still struggling with clearing efficiently. I haven't managed to perfect my clear time yet, so I decided to try something different. After reviewing a lot of my gameplay, I found that if I start in the enemy jungle, not exactly invading, but placing a ward to get vision on the enemy jungler, and they don't start on their opposite buff, I can snag one of their major buffs, either blue or red, after grabbing my own buffs. This way, I set the enemy jungler behind right from the start. It's like a redistribution of nerfs. If we're feeling the hard changes of the patch, let's make sure everyone's on board. This strategy came from refusing to play the victim. If they're going to nerf Volibear, let them, but I'll adapt in any way I can. And in this situation, it was the perfect start. Since we already have made an advantage, and the enemy top laner doesn't know about it yet, I focused on mastering my level 3 dives. Even though I haven't perfected my first clear on Volibear, I know how to execute dives, which is a skill every jungler needs. For example, on some champions, it's easier because you can drop tower aggro, like Elise or Master Yi. But with Volibear, you have to manage your shield, time your damage, and sometimes bait the enemy to hit you once or twice, so they take extra minion damage. Also, flash is often needed as well. But of course, the game didn't start terribly from the get-go. Initially, the main issue was that the team was gradually falling behind, but that's fine and somewhat expected. The early game isn't something you can rely on 100%. The best you can hope for in the early stages is to make it through without a significant disadvantage. What I aimed to do here was to keep my carry in a stable situation, since we're already familiar with the champion, and what matters the most is the team morale. Another thing as a jungler, if the game isn't looking good, you can still focus on positive plays and disrupt the enemy's plans. One way to do this is by maintaining presence on their side of the map and preventing their jungler from reaching your allies. Once we all reach our core items, the game dynamic completely changes, and one tactic we can use is delaying kills on their carry. This way, we're chipping away at their carry's time little by little. Now, the situation is starting to look dire. It feels like we're the only ones actually trying to win this game. The team is just chilling, sitting back, laughing, giving up farm, and not even showing up for objectives. You might start wondering, was this game custom made for me? I mean, everyone's got a role to fulfill, but somehow it seems like I'm the only one actually sticking to mine. Since the team didn't seem interested in making plays, I thought, you know what? Let's force them. Let's make the team get moving. We're trying to win here, and just sitting around isn't cutting it. At first, I considered that maybe Aurora's damage isn't ideal against bruisers, but who cares? We're in a situation where we've got to make things happen. I don't play with or against Aurora often in the top lane, and the matchup with mages against bruisers is painfully slow. Mages just don't get the same gold or resources as in mid lane. It is just safer. But lo and behold, we managed to secure some kills, which felt like a win, even with the obvious gap that's forming in the team. If there was ever a game that perfectly illustrated the zombie effect on a team, it's this one. Every minute, the impact of my allies on each call we make is shrinking, and I'm honestly starting to wonder about the odds of getting 4 of these types of players in one match. And no, we're not even at the peak of disaster yet. This is just the groundwork for what's about to unfold. To start, our team coordination is completely off, and individually, every player is weak without someone else's help. Here I am, the only one trying to initiate fights or create some kind of momentum, but no matter what I try, nothing is going in our favor. I started to wonder what was wrong. Was it the team composition? For instance, Yasuo has no setup for his ultimate besides his own spells and Janna's knockup. But come on, Yasuo players. You've got a high-risk, high-reward champ. It's on you to do some Hazagi shit, not sit around waiting for help. If you were Kalista, sure, I'd get it. They practically designed her around needing a babysitter. But Yasuo? You're supposed to be the castaway brother who gets power spiked by his 10th death. Then there's bot lane. They picked Caitlyn, who by definition needs to win or at least hold even in her lane. Janna only reinforces whatever ADC she's paired with, and our top lane chose a counterpick into Darius. The real issue? This team lacks any motivation to play the game, and it's baffling. I keep asking myself, what are the odds of having 4 players like this on one team? Still, I firmly believe every game is about how you play it, win or lose. If you play well and make the game unfold the way you want, the outcome is just a result of your efforts. Unfortunately, League doesn't recognize well played as a stat, it's just win or lose. But it'd be so meaningful if there were metrics in place to say, hey, based on your performance, you played a good game. Thankfully, in op.ggg, there's a little metric that sometimes says, unlucky. In other words, it's a subtle way of telling you, you did everything right, It just didn't work out because of your team. Amidst all the chaos, here comes the self-entitled, brainless, non-existent so-called ADC, acting as though the whole game revolves around them. This AD carry can't even haul their own sorry self to their seat properly, yet somehow they think they're the savior of this match. And to top it off, they have the audacity to blame Janna for us losing, as if some miracle 5-kill steal is the cure to this mental disease. The arrogance, the delusion, it's mind-boggling. What exactly are you doing with your life? At this point, we'd honestly be better off if you just went AFK. If they'd stop moving altogether, our chances of winning might actually improve, simply because we wouldn't be forced to rely on them. You know, if your dad stopped working one day, you wouldn't just sit around whining. You'd find a part-time job to hold things together. That's the difference here. One type of person thinks they're a victim, while the other doesn't care about anything except putting in the effort, no matter the outcome. Alright, to be fair, it's not just him. On the other side, credit where it's due. That Lulu-Aphelios combo is broken for a reason. Their synergy is on point, and they're making the most of it. Sometimes, even if you're giving it your all, you've got to admit when the opponents have outplayed you. Calling something broken is never an excuse to give up. Every carry, no matter how powerful, has a weakness, and the key one is always their summoner spells. This is what I like to call the fundamental rule of jungling. So, even if things look grim, there's always that spark of hope. If we play smart, track their cooldowns, and capitalize on every window, we can still grind out the win. Never surrender when there's even the slightest opening. Absolutely. When you're up against a team of skilled players, and your own team is average or below average, it's incredibly tough to make plays work. It can feel like every decision you make is a bad call. But at the end of the day, you can't just give up and say, well, that wasn't my fault. You have to try everything, even the risky or seemingly stupid plays, because you never know what might work. From the beginning, we were making the right calls, but things aren't going our way. So why not throw in a little chaos, introduce some unpredictability, and test the enemy's composure. If they're starting to match your stupid calls, you can throw them off guard with a sneaky move or a random decision. It's all about finding that one opening, the one window where they slip up, and using it to our advantage. I completely get that feeling. After trying everything else, you decided to go for the split push, even if it meant risking a base race. It's like you're trying to find that one last play that could turn everything around, and oddly, the one responding to your call was Lux. Honestly, you've got to give credit to Lux for playing well, landing her spells just about right, and making sure you can't dodge or at least avoid getting hit with something. As Volibear, though, the mobility is limited, and if there's no element of surprise, you're really at risk of getting caught. The split push strategy felt like your best bet, but then, of course, other factors came into play. Sometimes even when you know the odds are stacked against you, you just have to keep fighting and doing your best, no matter how difficult it feels. The moment of truth. You've exhausted all possible solutions, tried every strategy you could think of, and at this point, all you have left is to pray to a higher power. It sounds wild, but sometimes, after everything else fails, it's not about blaming your teammates or the enemy team. It's about holding on to that last sliver of hope, a disconnect, a technical issue, or even a personal crisis that throws them off. You're betting on that 1%, not because you're hoping it would work, but because you know it just happened to you by getting this zombie team. And well, of course, since none of that miracle happened and the enemy team took the win, there's still something we can do. We can review the game together, just like this video, and I welcome your suggestions in the comments section on what I could have done differently to secure the win. As always, I know you can't win them all, but it's the spirit that matters. Thank you everyone for watching. Until the next video, take care and peace.